Toronto St. Paul's, there is a scheduled Toronto Hydro power outage on Monday, for Monday at noon. Not just power, but water. I got wind of this last week. We got on Toronto Hydro. They canceled that because we watched the forecast, right? Now, it turns out there was a power outage anyway, which was absolutely bizarre that happened. But the bottom line is it's about planning. Do we need a chief heat officer? Absolutely not. We have a chief medical officer, as Brad said, city managers. We don't have a chief snow officer. It's called watching the forecast, being prepared, looking ahead. That's the bottom line.
I can't believe that. That's insane that Toronto Hydro scheduled a power outage for Monday and didn't adapt and pivot away from that when they saw you're going to be shutting off people's fans and air conditioners. And
their water. So as well for this emergency work. It was last week they told tenants about it, right? And it's like we knew the forecast. So it wasn't until first thing Monday morning that we knew for sure Toronto Hydro was canceling it. And then we had the Hydro One power outage. So it's just bizarre.
How many people did that affect in your riding?
Well, you have, it's at Yonge and St. Clair. So one 24-story building and another probably half that size in terms of stories. But you're dealing with a lot of seniors, a lot of pets. It was really worrisome.
I can't believe that.
It's about planning, bottom line, right? It's about planning, and it's about making sure that you just keep an eye on it. It's just, to me, that you don't need a chief heat officer, right?
I'm just shocked by that story. And Mark, I would make the case, though, paid by taxpayers, when you're the chief of police, everything adapts. Cold weather, hot weather, rain, snow. There's just, and depending on what's going on in the city, you'd manage the police probably with procurement and budget like it's a private industry. Private companies have to decide this all the time. Oh, you're not coming in because it's too hot? That's fine. I understand that. It just feels like everything is a struggle with the municipal government doing that.
Greg, full uniform, chief heat officer, full uniform with a hat that says chief on it. That is a solution. And then right after that, we have a city festival to celebrate the new appointment. That's what I say with all of our tax dollars. At the end of the day, Olivia has messed up the winter with snow removal and now the summer, and she's batting 500. And unfortunately, this is not baseball, so it's not good. So even if you hire this chief officer, it's just another person to blame. But the reality is, like Stephanie said, and like Brad said, this is nothing other than just planning straight up one-on-one. As far as I'm concerned, the seasons are pretty predictable, and there are going to be some off days. But however, in 2025, tons of technology to give us way more advanced knowledge than 20 years ago, and they seem to manage it really well. So this was nothing more than lack of leadership, lack of planning, lack of coordination. But again, when it came to a problem, the first solution on the plate was spend more tax dollars. So the good news is tons of consistency.
I'll ask Brad this. Does the city have enough pools? If we're admitting, regardless of everybody's perspective on it, that summer may have more extreme heat events going forward, do we have enough swimming pools? Could we use capital budget, save money elsewhere on a lot of wasteful spending, and build more pools, given that we've got way more people than we did 10, 15 years ago? We probably have the same amount of pools.
Well, there are plans for more pools. I think the bigger problem is, when the city's in charge and the city's leading on a project, it always costs more money and it often doesn't get done or it's majorly delayed. And that's the problem with our Parks Capital project. We have billions of dollars booked to new community centers and facilities, and they never seem to materialize because they're always delayed. There are always cost escalations and overruns, and the city has a very poor track record on delivering new infrastructure on time. And so this is the challenge in a growing city where there's more development and more growth. That creates pressure on those community infrastructure and resources, and the city is pretty abysmal at delivering that stuff. So yes, we do need more. More are planned, but our ability to execute on that has been pretty poor.
Let me come to Ontario Place and the parking lot yesterday, because I didn't like the look of the rendering of an above-ground parking lot on the Ontario Place side. We were told on the other side, on the Exhibition Place side, an in-ground parking lot. I know that's more expensive. Here's what the Premier said yesterday about it.
The parking space, just a massive ROI. It's incredible, the ROI on a parking space. And my dad taught me many years ago, folks. He said, son, the best investment you could ever have is a parking lot. Very low maintenance, have one staff, and you're just rolling in the cash. Obviously, my dad never bought a parking lot, so we stuck to the sticker business. But I'll never forget that. And you ask anyone who owns a parking lot, it's an incredible investment, especially when you have guaranteed customers.
All right, Steph, at some point somebody told us dumbly to go into broadcasting and didn't tell us to buy parking lots in our mid-20s. I'm greatly resentful of that. But this speaks to the larger issue of sort of the conversation and a lot of the concern and consternation about tax dollars and Ontario Place. Everybody wants this to work out. Everybody agreed it needed some renewal. Everybody agreed it was left dormant for too long. But when I saw the drawing yesterday and saw the dollar amount of taxpayer dollars, I'm like, some of the people who've critiqued this might have a point.
Pave Paradise put up a parking lot. There we go. This is just a blight and a disaster. Like, if this is $400 million to build this prefab parking lot that, you know, is an absolute eyesore that ruins our waterfront even more. Our tax dollars that could have gone into, say, improving infrastructure in schools so the kids had some air conditioning, you know, in the hot summer months, which are getting hotter despite what, you know, Joe Rogan wants to tell everybody. But, you know, it was
freezing in May. It was freezing in May. We needed sweaters in May.
Right. Yeah. No, this is just another example of absolute disaster with Ontario Place, with, you know, what the Ford government is doing there, special economic zones, all these things. And who knows if he'll listen. But by all accounts, and not only mine, this is just, it's unthinkable, you know, that this would actually, and he stands there and says this is going to have a fountain and it's going to be a fantastic photo op for when he marries somebody. You know, it's just...
well, now you're putting words in his mouth. That's your idea, not his. I know.
Yeah. But, you know, it's absolutely... I couldn't even imagine this when I saw it. So it's absolute shame, and it's just another example that just a horrible waste of taxpayers' money that we're going to be paying for. And I think it's going to add up to what, $45 to park there, and then not only that, go to that luxury spa. So, you know, have a great time.
Mark, you've been involved in the Ontario Place project. I just look and I go, yes, it's public money, and we certainly complain when that's misused. But I didn't like the look at it. I'm willing to give such an open mind to whether the spa will work, all the putting retail down there, restaurants. We've needed that for decades, but I didn't like some of what I saw yesterday. How did you see it?
Well, I saw it. I think it's an ongoing project, and I know they're trying to do their best to get the best results out of it. And you're right. There was probably a proposal for Exhibition Place to do it underground. But again, Ontario Place is the province of Ontario, and across the road is the city of Toronto, and things did not align. So you take your best option. Now, I'm going to be the guy where the cup's half full. And if you're going to drive there just to look at the parking lot, well, yeah, you're going to get a very bad experience.
That sounds like a fun day for pack the kids in the station wagon and take them down there. I think so.
Come on, kids, you're going to go look at the parking lot. But listen, we're talking about 5,000 jobs. We're talking about 2/3 public realm. That's way more than it was before and than it will be in the future. A brand new, beautiful beach, concerts and activities, 365 days a year, entertainment, 365 days a year. And on top of that, when Exhibition Place does their thing, that whole area is going to be amazing, not to mention the money that it's going to bring in, and not to mention the tourism it's going to bring in, and the hotels, and way more jobs that's going to have happen there. So I think the big picture is going to be a beautiful thing. I think it is going to work well. And, you know, the next generation in another 50, 60 years will probably tear it down and do something else. That's just the way things go. And so I'm not all that upset about it, because I think in the big picture, I think it's going to be a fantastic place, and I think that a lot of people are going to go there, and it's going to be a fun time.
Brad, how do you see it from the city side? Again, despite differing opinions, it just gobsmacks me that we just left it sitting there for as long as we left it. I blame a lot of premiers, a lot of provincial governments prior to this one, and a lot of city council. A lot of city councils as well, and mayors that just didn't see the forest for the trees here. How do you see this, though, with the parking lot?
The trees are clear cut.
That's true, too. And the coyotes. Get the coyotes a cooling station based on the last 3 days in Spadina, Fort York. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, generally in the city of Toronto, we don't do a lot of parking structures. You go out to Alberta, you go out west, arcades is what they call them, I believe. It's much more common. But in Toronto, parking has typically been surface parking lots. which aren't great, or underground, which is hugely expensive. So this is a bit of a compromise, I suppose, in that a parking structure is more efficient in terms of the land that they're using versus just massive surface parking lots, which aren't particularly great either. But I got to say, I have a hard time with a massive parking structure on prime waterfront real estate. That's not necessarily highest best use, but they're up against the challenge of like, this is going to be a destination for the whole province. I do believe that. I think it's going to be fantastic, and people are going to need to park there. So I would have rather seen the mayor strike a deal with the province to sort of locate the parking, maybe do something in tandem with Exhibition Place on the north side and save some of that waterfront real estate, which is among the most valuable in the entire country, for a higher and better use. But this is what they've got on the table right now. There is a lot of other good stuff that's going to take place here in terms of parks and amenities. But we're all just going to have to look past that huge parking structure that is going to be front and center there on the water.
All right, I'll have about a minute for each of you on this. I'm fascinated to get the read on this, and we'll go to the former law enforcer on this front, Mark Saunders. City Councillor Anthony Peruso is moving a motion to press pause on speed cameras in Toronto. They've just done this in Vaughan. Now, speed cameras bring in $70 million of revenue for the city of Toronto, but they haven't been without controversy. They haven't been without people thinking it's a revenue tool and not a reminder to slow down in, school areas where seniors are, where a lot of dogs get walked, etc. What's the line here, Mark? I'm real curious where you are on speed cameras as a tool in general for a community.
Well, I was instrumental in bringing them in because if done properly, that's a key word, it will save lives, it will reduce fatalities by 20%, and it will enhance safety. And we've got 2,600 kilometers of roadway in the city. However, if the city's converted it into a money grab, then shame on them for doing that, because that's what put the bad taste in the taxpayers' mouths many years ago when it got brought in at the federal level. So I think it would be healthy to figure out how to make it more designed for traffic safety and public safety, and not an opportunity just to make more money for the city.
Balancing act, isn't it, Steph, to talk about that? Make communities safer. That's what matters the most. Of course, nobody likes to get that ticket in the mail. One of the best parts of the day is trying to figure out which of the 4 drivers now in my household got the latest ticket. That's fine. I'm like, it's you. I know you were going somewhere, and I know you went 52 and a 40. But the critics argue it's a cash grab.
It's not going 52 and a 40. It's going 41 and a 40. Right? That's when you're getting.
I keep hearing those stories. Are people actually getting tickets for going 1 kilometer over? Everybody says they are.
Yeah, true in this house. Okay, but what I want to say is I agree, like keeping the community safe is the priority, right? If the speed cameras aren't working because they're penalizing those who aren't, to go after, it might not be a bad idea to consider alternatives. But what I need to ask here is, I've heard Chow say it isn't a cash grab. I'm hearing from Mark and everybody, and I believe it is a cash grab. What's the truth here? Can anybody tell me?
Brad Bradford, city councilor, is it a cash grab?
I think it's a bit of I think it's a bit of a cash grab. I mean, you had the numbers earlier. The city's collecting $70 million on an annual basis. That's that's worth 1.5% property tax increase. So I think it is a cash grab. Look, at the end of the day, we want the outcome of people not speeding in the neighborhoods. Exactly. When you're issuing them a ticket, that's actually retroactive, right? What we need to do is have better signage, whether that's paint markings, make it more obvious that there is in fact a speed camera there. And what's going to happen? It's going to drive the behavior, which is the slowing down of the vehicle so that they are not speeding. That's what we want. You don't actually have to issue the ticket and whack them with the fine without giving them ample warning. And you drive around the city, and there's lots of instances where the sign is basically on top of the radar camera or it's obstructed by trees. It feels a little bit sneaky. And I think Mark made the point, like once the public starts to feel like this is less about safety and it's more about lining the city coffers, that's when you lose the goodwill.
Would you like to keep them, but you think maybe we have too many now?
Well, I think like you got to sign them better. And so that it's accomplishing the objective of making sure people are not speeding in these areas. yeah, you have to have the stick, but your first choice, not to be go and clobber people with it. What we want them to do is make the right decision, do less speeding in these specific areas. And I think you can do that, incentivize that behavior with the proper signage, and markings. And you know what? If we take a pause to look at that, I'm fine with that.
Maybe, Steph, the tickets that your family continues to get goes to pay for the FIFA World Cup. But if you get 5 tickets, you get a ticket to one of the games. Like, I think that's a fair, you get to go see South Korea play like Ecuador when it's like 37 degrees out in our warming planet. We link it all together.
It's not warming. Remember that.
I'll leave it there. It's all static. There's an ice age coming. I feel it. I feel the frostiness. Guys, thanks so much for this. Talk soon.
Thanks, Fred.
Thanks to Stephanie Smythe, Mark Saunders, and Brad Bradford. We will talk to the city council.